All right, YouTube, there's a link in the description to RCP. Now, I have been cautionary on this topic for literally the entire election. From the very beginning of the primaries, I was saying, don't take too much stock in any single poll, because a poll can be completely and utterly wrong. Its methodology could be failed. It could just be totally random chance, and it's 5, 10 points off. It happens all the time. We saw that problem with one polling firm, I can't remember the name, in Wisconsin, that showed Trump up by like 15 points. And then, of course, Cruz ran away with it. We saw similar polls that showed Trump trailing Cruz or Kasich in some of these states, and it didn't bear out. We've seen, of course, famously in Michigan between Sanders and Hillary, and also even, I believe it was Kentucky, where she was strongly ahead, and then all of a sudden Sanders was even, and she was 10 points ahead in Oregon, and he ended up winning Oregon. So don't pay attention to any single poll. Pay attention to the aggregate of polls. RCP is the best service for this. You got to pay attention to RCP. What does it show? For the first time, Trump is now leading Hillary Clinton. Now, it may only be 0.2 of a point, but it's still significant for several reasons. Number one, you may imagine the Republican Party has unified now. That is, most of those, as I predicted, that are in positions within the RNC, they're within the party at some level or another, they're a senator, a governor, whatever, they've gotten behind Trump. They've unified. On the other side, though, there are still, the Democratic Party suffers malaise in one way, because voters are not as enthusiastic. You can see the number of people participating in the Democratic primaries is down significantly in most states. Number two, there's a sense, I think, of malaise within the DNC itself. That is, a lot of people expected Hillary to so easily outmatch her opponents that I don't even think there was even a true attempt at rigging things, so much as they just expected her to soar like an eagle. She'd never have any real competition, and here's Bernie Sanders actually putting up a stiff resistance. Wins Oregon, almost beats her in Kentucky. It's basically as dead even as you can get. The only race that was closer in the whole primary system this year has been Missouri on the Republican side, where I think Trump won by 500 votes. So it's getting down to the wire. And Hillary Clinton, who everyone expected to run away with it very early on, is still battling it out. Now, does this mean Sanders wins? No, it doesn't necessarily mean he has any chance at all. But it does mean there's a chance of a contested convention. Now, if he's bad-mouthing Debbie Wasserman Schultz, refusing to step out of the race, as Clinton has repeatedly said he should, he is capable of forcing them into a contested convention in which he will try to woo superdelegates. Whether he's successful or not, what it will end up doing is breaking the Democratic Party's spine. I don't see it repairing itself. In truth, it was never the GOP that was disunified. The GOP was perfectly unified. The vast majority of the votes went to Trump, who is well outside of the political establishment, having never been in politics, and Cruz. Cruz branding himself as an outsider, as being hated by the establishment. That was a lie, it was just propaganda, but that's what he branded himself as, and most of those people stuck with him till the end. It wasn't until he dropped out. Actually, he had a little bit more hardened support than I expected. Most of those people are simply anti-establishment voters that didn't like Trump. They're all riding the Trump train now because their candidate is gone. Yeah, some of them will still vote for Cruz, even though he's out of the race, but it ultimately doesn't matter. No, Trump is the nominee of the Republican Party. He'll get the delegates he needs, obviously, because he's running unopposed. Meanwhile, on the other side, Clinton is now ranked as less trustworthy than Trump. She's got a 40-point lead among Hispanics, which sounds great until you remember that Obama, I think, won with 50% advantage, which actually means she's not doing too well. I have my own hunches about why this is. Only part of it's economic, trust me. Some of it's racial. Hillary Clinton has managed to disenfranchise a lot of people in the Rust Belt with her comments on West Virginia. She didn't realize, I think, that the comments she made there would reverberate so much during the primary season. They're going to continue reverberating and might grow during the general election. She's really stuck her foot in it this time when it comes to the Rust Belt states. I would not be surprised. You may scoff. You may think that I'm wrong now. But wait until the general election and see if Pennsylvania doesn't turn red. I think that there's a better than 50-50 chance that it will. At any rate, she was 2 points ahead in Pennsylvania. Obama won it by like 14, so it's a swing state now. And when Pennsylvania, which for the last few elections has been handily blue, goes into swing state mode, you know, there's not a particularly powerful Democratic candidate. Trump's going to drive a wedge into the old block of the Democratic Party between the far reaches of the lakes, like Illinois and Minnesota, and the Northeast region, New York and Maine and stuff like that. He's going to drive a wedge between them, and he's also going to target New Hampshire. That's what he's going to do. I fully expect that whoever he appoints as VP will be from the middle of that region, from the Rust Belt somewhere. Kasich and Scott Walker both fit the bill. I don't like Scott Walker and would see that as a net negative for the Trump campaign. Be a lot of ammo to give the opponents as opposed to nice, quiet Kasich, who sort of, he can't grandstand. He can't upstage Trump in any way. We'll just let Trump do what he wants. Christie, he's from New Jersey, so he's not a great choice. But yeah, I think Kasich and Scott Walker, I guess both have their pluses. Kasich has more, Scott Walker has more negatives, in my opinion. That's just my take. But Trump is leading Hillary. The general election hasn't even begun yet, and you've already got several polls. Now, 3 polls, recent polls, showing him ahead. Those that show Clinton ahead show her just barely ahead. Essentially, what you've got is a dead heat. That's not good news for Hillary Clinton, because who do you think is going to perform better at the debates? Honestly, let's put our bias aside and ask ourselves who the better public speaker is. Who is holding more rallies? Who gets crowds whipped up into a greater fury? Who is more capable of changing the minds of, in many cases, the TV or live streaming internet audience while ignoring those actually present at some sort of speaking event, whether it be a debate or whatever it happens to be? Which one of them is superior at speaking? Is it geriatric acting? Honestly, this would be not a misnomer, low-energy Hillary Clinton, who has already spent, decades making speeches and is kind of worn out looking and apparently needs a teleprompter, or somebody who doesn't bother to use a script most of the time, kind of has a few notes in front of him and just wings it the whole time. Trump has more experience debating from the last year than Hillary Clinton has managed to garner in the last decade. All things in perspective, I have a feeling that Trump is going to stomp Hillary out in the first debate, and at that point he will take a more handy lead. It's going to be nearly dead even until then because the partisans are already locked in place. The independent voters have sort of begun making up their minds who they're more likely to back. The only thing Trump needs to do is really debilitate her at 1 or 2 debates, and he runs away with it. That and his business strategy, I think, when he begins continuing to temper his message, that will work. It is significant that he is leading Hillary Clinton, someone who everyone thought was inevitable. Think about it this way. Trump is about even with Hillary in the polling. Supposedly, Donald Trump is the weakest, most divisive, most disunifying candidate in GOP history. A bigot, a sexist, a homophobic, racist, genocidal warmonger who wants to start World War III. And he's about even with Hillary Clinton. Now imagine that the press that he starts getting, because he's going to fucking temper his message and the media is short-sighted, imagine that his new image is much more positive, much more balanced and moderate, and he gets along more with the media and gives them a pass on being idiots like he's called them at many of his rallies. Imagine that the media starts writing happily about him from time to time because they want interviews with the presumptive Republican nominee / definite Republican nominee / already basically the Republican nominee. They want interviews. They want lip service paid to them. They know that Trump, just by giving them a pat on the back and saying this person's cool with me, they can sell an extra 10,000 copies of their book, or their ratings suddenly go up because he's a business mogul. And imagine that they start sort of condemning Hillary Clinton because she starts making the same stupid mistakes that she's already begun making even though she's not under pressure in a general election. She's facing off against somebody who 1 election cycle ago would have been considered a fringe lunatic, would never have broke into the double digits as far as the polling goes. This is Sanders I'm talking about, who is considered a backwoods socialist rube, with very few sensible ideas, who mostly goes to Congress to harangue people and not bother even showing up to vote. That's what Bernie Sanders is known for. And yet he is making it very difficult for Hillary Clinton to avoid a contested convention. Meanwhile, her general election opponent, because she will still likely be the nominee, although probably not the next president, supposedly is so weak and so horrible, and everyone in the world is united in their hatred of Donald Trump, and he's about even with the Democratic candidate. Hillary Clinton's support, come the time that she is nominated, will collapse. And I say this for two reasons. First and foremost, a lot of those Sanders voters are not bullshitting you when they say they're not going to back Clinton, because the reason they back Bernie is he's not backed by Wall Street and corporations. These are the occupiers turned voters. These are the occupiers that left their pup tents behind and actually got a job. By the hundreds of thousands, this is a major voting bloc for Bernie Sanders. They will not back Hillary Clinton. I know I wouldn't. If I wanted a candidate who didn't stand for Wall Street, you know what I would do? I'd vote for Jill Stein of the Green Party, because it's about the closest thing to Bernie Sanders that I could get. If I'm a business Democrat, why the hell would I want to vote for Hillary Clinton? She wants to blame white males for every problem in the country while simultaneously shipping more jobs overseas. These are the same Democrats that for a while now have already felt disenfranchised every time Obama rants about how great the TPP will be. Well, Hillary Clinton is trying to do the same thing. She hasn't shined so much praise on what she knows is a bitter partisan issue that's a losing issue for the Democratic Party, but the things she alludes to are exactly the same as the result of the TPP. People understand this. They have abandoned the Democrats already. Hundreds of thousands of them have already signed up as Republicans to go in primary for Donald Trump predominantly. The Reagan Democrats have already left the field. That's why Hillary Clinton is about even with Trump. That means there is no leeway for her to make a mistake. Trump can. He's already shown when he makes a mistake, it doesn't do bullshit to him. The Republican partisans don't care. Most of the independents apparently don't care. He can get away with a lot more than Hillary Clinton can. Number two, when Bernie Sanders drops out, what other voting bloc of people is going to be a little bit epically pissed off? Oh, young, under 25, in many cases, first-time voters. You see, the only reason that they signed up to vote in a primary to begin with is because Bernie Sanders was there. Take that away, and who are they going to vote for? A lot of them will stay home, or they'll write in Bernie Sanders. A lot of them are considering Gary Johnson because he's sort of a vaguely leftist, I would say, kind of pragmatic libertarian. He's an okay dude. He's not the best possible candidate I can envision, but tolerable, better than Hillary Clinton, certainly. They'll vote for him, or again, they'll vote for Jill Stein. Or they'll stay home and won't vote at all. Hillary Clinton will probably be 2 or 3 points behind Trump within a couple of months. At that point, the general really amps up. We get some debates. We get some good campaign commercials going on. And also, Trump is now bandying around the idea of selling part of his real estate empire to continue self-funding. Can you say, great idea? One of Donald Trump's biggest strengths is he appears not to be beholden to the normal corporate structure and banking structure that funds political campaigns. If he starts sucking off donors for money, he'll have a problem. I believe, this is just a belief, but this is my prediction, my tentative prediction, is that he will come out and he'll say, oh, well, some donors are donating to me. I appreciate that. Others aren't. So I'm going to keep mostly self-funding my campaign. He'll sell off a couple buildings here and there. He'll sell off a couple of holdings here and there. And he'll be golden. He'll have a bigger war chest than Hillary will have. And by the way, Trump is proof positive that you don't need $1 billion war chest to run a campaign. Because the amount that he ended up spending was far short of people like Rubio and Cruz and barely on par with some of the second-tier candidates, and yet look at the results he got. He doesn't need as much money to drive attention because he's already mastered the social media era technique of doing so. He knows you say something that sounds a little edgy and loud, and it pisses a few people off. It gets in the media. Then you issue something that's more kosher, more moderating thereafter. You say, "Oh, well, I didn't mean that. I meant this." And all along you knew what you were going to say in both cases. You knew what the moderating message was going to be before you even said the first comment that got you in the newspapers. You just got free press. You didn't pay a cent for it. And your message was positive because your hardline fans like your original message and everybody else likes the second message. Hillary Clinton doesn't do that. She shoots from the hip, and she either says something that her fans really like and no one else really gives a fuck about, like we're going to ban this kind of firearm or something, some partisan issue, a wedge issue, or she says something and then she has to profusely apologize, like saying, "Oh, we're going to put coal miners out of business." What a dud. It doesn't make sense. See, here's the problem for Hillary. Here's why I say Trump has such an advantage. At its core, the most fundamental reason is this. Hillary Clinton is running a 90s-style wedge issue-based swing state campaign like the Democrats have in the last 5 election cycles, whereby she just wants 51% of the voting public to support her so that at the end of the night she's the victor. Donald Trump is not running a wedge issue-based campaign. He's running a populist campaign. He's running an it's us against the world style campaign, hoping to get as much of the vote as he can because he's greedy to feed his ego. That's not bad for the country, by the way. Having an egotist in charge, unless they become total totalitarian, which an executive in this country can't do. He can't just unilaterally take control of everything because we have checks and balances. That egotist will try to do the right thing to feed their ego because their popularity goes up. Trump doesn't want to be some half-assed president like a fucking Clinton or a Bush or something that ends up, at mediocre popularity levels. He wants to be like God-man mode. He wants to be like at post-Putin popularity. He'll be competing with Putin. He won't be competing like Obama does with Merkel to see who can screw their own country the fastest. He'll be competing with Putin to see who can drag the economy ahead as quickly as possible and utterly subjugate their foes. That's what he will do as the president of the United States. Now, I may think that the government's empowerment of itself to do that is inherently authoritarian and a bad idea and a slippery slope, but it is tolerable compared to the alternative, which is a deliberate attempt to weaken our own nation. That's what I think. So he's running a true national campaign. He's going after every state, not just swing states. He's going after every race, not just, 51% of people classed into certain races and sub-races. He's not playing the gender card. It's Hillary who's doing that, and when he points that out, it's going to lose her a lot of support also. These people that thought Hillary Clinton was inevitable just need to look at RCP, because there is at least a moment in time now when Trump is at least slightly ahead. That shows, I guess, that people don't buy the bullcrap, that he's a bigoted, xenophobic, genocidal madman, which is what you hear not only in the U.S. press, but you hear it from the foreign press all the time. You look at the U.K. or what the Irish just said. It's basically they're all dumbfounded. They can't understand why the United States would think borders were a good idea, why the United States would want actual good trade relations with other countries, why the United States would want to stop sticking its dick in the Middle Eastern beehive to beef up its own domestic defense. They can't understand it because they're so far out in left field that they're in la la land. They've left reality behind entirely. And so that's why I say Trump has a systemic advantage in this election. Sank of the young turds admitted it himself. Oh, well, yeah, Hillary Clinton's behind him in trustworthiness. Well, no shit. That's because everyone knows she's not trustworthy. Is there anybody in this country, including Hillary fans, who think she is trustworthy? Would you trust her to, watch your house for a week? Would you trust her to walk your dog? She needs a dozen armed bodyguards around her just to function during the day. She needs people just to tell her what to say, what to think. She reads off a teleprompter every time she speaks. Trump doesn't. Now, people thought it'd get him in trouble, but when you look at what Trump said, that's more genuine. You can think it's crazy all you want, but this has been pointed out multiple times. It's the devil you know. Are you going to switch it up and take a chance on Trump and see if he can do better? At the end of the day, I expect a vast majority of people will say yes. I expect it to be a handy victory, if not a landslide. I don't think it's going to be a close election. I don't think Hillary will be the next president. And I hope not, because honestly, she'd be a disaster. She'd be like Obama 2.0, only worse, even more corrupt. Like Obama's a saint compared to Hillary. You can tell they don't even like each other. I think Obama's like Chicago mobster-style politics. Even though he engages in that sort of stuff, I think even he like gets the shivers when she walks by. I would too. She just literally exudes an aura of untrustworthiness. And that's not the sort of person I think most sane individuals really want leading the United States. When you have nations that are fucked up, fairly obviously fucked up, their economies are fucked up, there's like civil unrest, people are voting out the establishment in favor of literal nationalists, not like Trump populism, but actual nationalism. When those people are telling you should vote for Hillary Clinton, vote for anybody but Hillary Clinton, because that sounds like a bad idea to me. That's about all. Peace out.